I want to say like sieve down what life is. And here's what life is.
Yeah.
Life is, it consists of four things. And it is, we're all born with our health. We're all born with time. And well, all of these are limited. So health can be limited, time can be limited. We're born with community and our environment.
Hello and welcome to the One World Countless Story podcast with me, Selena Novello. Today I have a very special guest and it is Leesa Iverson, and I'm so excited. So Leesa is one of my good friend's mom, and she reached out to me about wanting to talk about her story and also a book that she wrote. And so I am very excited because she is definitely an inspiration and just has so much joy and passion to share with the world. And this is where she's going to shine and sparkle and share a little bit about her book that she wrote. So today I'm very excited. Welcome, Leesa.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. And I think this is just magic. It's going to be such a great conversation. I can feel it in my bones. So
yes, me as well. I'm very excited. All right. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us anything that you feel is important for us to know about you?
Okay. Well, so my name is fully Leesa JoAnn Iverson, but I use that for my artist and illustrator voice. But Leesa, I spell it differently, Leesa. I kind of changed that when I was younger. Actually, I was born Lisa. I am a wife, a mother, a sister, an auntie. But basically, in the last 7 years, I'm just gonna share that I'm so excited about art and writing. It's everything that I've ever done has sort of led me to this spot.
Oh, that's awesome. And I can't wait to talk about what has gotten you to that author and artist journey. But we're going to start off with the beginning of your story. So can you tell us a little bit about your childhood and anything that you feel is important for us to know, maybe something that was very instrumental in shaping who you are today?
Okay. I was born in Edmonton and I grew up in St. Albert, Alberta. St. Albert's a bedroom community just north of Edmonton here. My mother was a nurse, although I don't recall her practicing. I have memories of my early life, and my mother it kind of consists of her being in the home quite a bit. She hurt her back and her shoulder, so she was around. And then I was kind of a sickly kind of kid with allergies and asthma. So my mom was kind of taking care of the home life, but. My father, he started up his own travel agency, and he actually left the home when I was 3. So, and he ended up remarrying. He moved to the West Coast and he had a second family. And we kept in touch with him and would visit like once or twice a year, but he wasn't really part of raising me or my siblings. So the home that I grew up in was kind of constantly tense and volatile with some emotion. And it's only more recently that I'm able to identify how much that environment shaped my behaviors and thoughts about the bigger world. So growing up in the home that I did, it made me want to be very present and hands-on parent to my boys and provide as much stability as possible for them. So, yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds like there's lots of change happening at such a young age.
Yeah, it really was a lot. And not to say that my home life was like I know that that sounds like a lot to kind of share out the gate. Like I felt loved. I felt taken care of. There was food and shelter and on all of that. But certainly that shaped me into the person that I am. It made me, I think, turn into myself and become more creative in my thinking. To it kind of like insulate myself against that sort of greater world. So I think that sort of shaped me into becoming a bit more of an introvert. And I think that that's something that I'm working on now, kind of breaking out of my bubble and sharing my art with the world. So
Yeah, I mean, you have beautiful reflection in there that you were able to see what your childhood did and go back and revisit some of those memories that aren't easy to visit because there is some emotional baggage and attachment and lots of different things that are experienced when you go back and review what your childhood was like. And so I'm wondering what were some of those really hard emotions that you were battling at that time and how they shaped some of your art. And like you said, your personality, you're a little bit more introverted and you have a creative spark from that, which is so beautiful. But what else has it done for you?
Oh, I think it's really taught me resilience. I think it's really taught me to now, there's a lot to be said for, figuring out and navigating the world uh, through hard times. I think something that I've been learning, I have been doing a lot of like work on myself over the last few years to try and kind of look back at, because there's so much of your early life, you're kind of just trying to get forward and ahead, and you're working on your education, your career, and then family. And so there seems to be sort of this pause, at least in my life right now, where I'm reflecting back on my childhood and my parents and looking at all with compassion,
Yeah.
and seeing my mother with compassion, seeing my father with compassion, and then having more compassion for myself and
Mm-hmm.
um, all of the things, all of the choices that I made that maybe weren't in my best interest, or the choices that I made that were in my best interest. And uh, yeah, just taking a look at that and trying to see how I can kind of grow out of that,
Mm-hmm.
and grow into being more fully me rather than a product of my upbringing. Does that make sense?
That makes 100% sense. Like, that's
Yeah.
so beautiful. I love the way that you frame that and are able to take something and make it so positive. I absolutely love that. And there's so much to be said about compassion for others and for yourself, like you're talking. It's really cool when you can sit back and realize that, like, my parents did the best that they could with what they had at that time, and being able to give yourself that same grace that you were doing the best that you could do with the tools that you had. And it's so remarkable that you had that insight.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh, I love you.
Oh, thank you.
That's wonderful. That's right. That's exactly right. And yeah, it is, I've been kind of turning my lens and my focus. I actually did a little bit of meditation just before we began here, but that idea of kind of going within, and the realization that I've been having in so many different aspects of life is that there is suffering in the world, and that each person is dealing with their own suffering.
Yeah.
And certainly when I talk about like that lens of compassion that I can have for my parents and for myself, it's sort of in recognizing that that suffering is there. It was with them when they were doing their best to raise me, and when they were making their own decisions. And and I can see my own suffering, and
Mm-hmm.
I can see how without it, I wouldn't have learned the lessons that I've learned that have brought me to this exact moment, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and I'm so grateful for this moment. I'm so grateful to have had, it not easy at the time and not easy to recognize, but the childhood and the adversity that I've had, because it really has shaped me to then raise my own kids and to influence the people around me
Mm-hmm.
in a way that I don't think that I could have done without having that perspective.
Yeah.
So in a weird, strange way, I think suffering it's important to us.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think suffering is a really important moment for us to have. Like, and sometimes we suffer alone, sometimes we suffer with other people, but it's not that we wish suffering on anyone, but when you can be grateful and find the wow, what this suffering did for me. I can think of a time in my life where I had to go through extreme suffering in silence, but I did it. just to receive the fruit on the other side of it. It makes everything, when you go through such dark times and hard times, it makes the great and beautiful times even more sweeter and richer, because you just know how hard you had to work to get to a better place, to a greater place where you could truly shine. And I feel that through your story, where you have this newfound gratitude for all the suffering that has happened. And I think it is important that we experience hurdles and things that we have to overcome in our life, because it builds the grit inside of us, but it builds who we are today.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. And, I just sort of see this sort of like, it's like a scale of balance. It's a balance of, I think in our society, so many people talk about like striving for happiness or wanting to be happy. And if you even see like in marketing or images, it's just, everything is sort of on the brighter. And of course, we want to lean into positivity and we want to be more positive. But it's just, I think that there needs to also be an acknowledgement that it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to feel that suffering, not to like sink into it, but that's where community comes in. That's where it's so important that we have people in our lives that we can trust or that we can talk to and share that. And that's the other thing, is that I just feel so grateful for having conversations with people that, like I think about my siblings, in when talking about childhood, to be able to sort of relate back to that and get their perspective on it, for better and for worse, and just sort of be able to kind of roll that around and take another look at it, because I think, so oftentimes we can just get so kind of caught up in our heads with the story that we have told ourselves.
Yes.
And so that's where it's so important, when we're feeling those hard feelings, to be able to like talk to somebody that, because there's even something when we're saying our story out loud, there can be moments when you hear yourself say something that you're like, is that true? I don't know if you've ever had that, but
Yeah, totally.
I've certainly had that, where it's like, oh, to hear myself say that, I think I can kind of take a better look at that and question it, rather than just sort of holding that in my head and my heart and believing it. So
no, you're so right. The stories we tell ourselves, they can build up really quickly, but we have to know that that's not always the full truth. And it's important, like you said, to question it. It really is the question, the things that we put inside our head. It's like, is this actually true, or did we just build this completely up? And we all do it. And it's like, as much as we try to break that habit, it can creep and crawl back in. And it's just like this ongoing, continuous process. And I think that through your story and your examples that you've been talking about, there is this awesome realization and recognition that things can be different than they have been.
Yeah, like our brain is it's this miraculous, I sort of see it this computer system, and depending on our upbringing, it's almost like our hard wiring can be kind of conditioned to think a certain way. But that's not the end all be all. So it's so important to question and to have those conversations, to kind of because you can change it, you can change your story. The past is in the past, and the future is, it's open. So it's important to take a look, to talk to people, and and just sort of mull over and question. So anyway, so
No, yeah, very, very powerful things. And I hope if you're listening to this right now, you're really listening to that you can change your life at any moment. You are the author, right, to your own story, where you get to choose and question things that you've always believed that you thought were true. You get the opportunity to question every single day. And I absolutely love the topics that are coming up in this, because I just think that they're so important for people to hear, and that it's just never too late. It's never too late to start your healing journey or start a new passion or anything. Like, you can do that at any point in time. And so I thank you for sharing all of that. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about being a parent and being a mother. You talked about the tools that you learned from your suffering and how you were going to change that and show up in a more present way for your family. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your family and how you show up for them.
Yeah, well, my experience of growing up, as I had mentioned, sort of lacked stability. And so it was just so important to me to be present for my two sons, as they were growing up, and to be a very hands-on parent, and to read them stories, to, have routine, to pay attention. That was the thing that I, I really don't recall having, and so that definitely shaped me, just
Of course.
feeling like, or if I had attention, it was sort of focused in a negative way, I think. So for my boys, yeah, I really wanted to be there for them. And I really feel fortunate with my husband in that we agreed that I would be home for them. And that was just such a gift, not only I think to the kids, but to me
Right.
and to our family, because what we ended up dealing with too was, you know, I know we haven't talked about this, but I did struggle in school. I was sort of like one of the kids in class that got pulled out of class because I wasn't understanding
Mhm.
concepts that were very clear, it seemed, to my peers. And I remember that feeling. I grew up sort of feeling like I wasn't very smart, and so I really wanted to be there for my boys to to boost them. I
Yeah.
think a big part of not just parenting, but like the whole ancestral line that we live in our lives is to sort of raise our family up on our shoulders and give them that lift of all the lessons and things that we've learned, and to let them know they're loved, and just give them that security so that they can just reach out into the world and grab what they, pull themselves forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I was trying really hard for my boys to give them everything that I sort of felt like I wanted in my own life.
Oh
And
yeah.
and what a gift to be able to be home and give that to them. But
Mhm.
yeah,
And was there some hurdles? I'm sure there was some hurdles and being a stay-at-home mom. I'd love to hear more of your experience through that. And I thank you for sharing that you struggled in school, because it's not easy to acknowledge that. And I also can relate to that, where I went to a special school for learning disabilities, and that's actually where I met your son. But it's a really hard journey to get through, where you feel like you're stupid, you feel like you can't do anything, you feel all these ways, and sometimes people tell you these things, or sometimes it's what you believe inside your head because you're just looking at what other people can do versus what you can do at that time. And I think it's big to be able to say, like, yes, I struggled, but you were able to again use that as an opportunity to change your children's life.
yes, that's right. That's right. And definitely, that goes back to the sort of like you know, experience and sort of questioning the story. But yeah, it definitely it definitely made it so that I was wanting for my kids to have all of the educational support that they could have. But what I
Mhm.
ran into, and I want to be really careful about not invading my children's privacy
Of course.
around their own stories. But as a parent, I mean, parenting, I have to say, it is a hard job. I heard myself say so many times over the years, I wish they came with a manual, um, some sort of instruction or reference booklet. And I think there's people out there that have tried to do it. It's just that, never mind, like, how diverse our population is, that there's no two faces that are the same. You
Yeah.
know, that's the same with our brains, with neurodiversity. I haven't been assessed at all, but I'm very certain that, my brain just, it works so differently. And so what happened was, is for my kids, um, recognized, I want to say early on, but that's not the case. I watched my eldest struggle through kindergarten. I watched him struggle through grade 1, and started realizing that there was going to be, that something, he needed more support, but I had no idea, and I had no awareness actually at that time about learning disabilities. And and it just got worse into grade 2, where then, you never want to hear your kid say that he's stupid. You never want to hear you don't want to hear your kid talk, have see his low self-esteem. And the thing about children that, and some adults, is that I just read something, and it said something like all action is communication.
Yeah.
And kids, they don't know what it is that's wrong. They just know it doesn't feel good.
Right.
And so to witness that and to see that he was struggling and that he wasn't feeling good in the environment that he was in, it just broke my heart. And so I started on the journey of trying to find where his strengths were valued, because he's got amazing strengths.
Yeah.
But it's just unfortunate that with the curriculum and the way that education is measured, those just they just showed that he wasn't doing, that he didn't measure up, and he knew that very acutely.
Right.
And so in my journey, I did find a school, and I don't mean to sound dramatic, but it felt life saving, not just life changing. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
as it happened,
I appreciate you saying that. And I know for my own journey too, when I went to a school that really, accepted me for who I was, I really realized in my own journey that my disabilities, we could call them those, right? My learning disabilities were actually my abilities. And it was a complete shift. And I can relate in that aspect where there is a lot to be said about the environment and the school system and how it's made for cookie cutter. It's a cookie cutter system, right? And when there is an opportunity to go outside of that and find a place where you can truly thrive, it's beautiful. And I can relate to you through my parents in a little bit, where they just honestly wanted the best for me. And we can see that through the story, where you see someone struggling and you just naturally want to figure out how to give them the best opportunity to succeed.
Yeah,
it's
that's
beautiful.
right. It makes me think, I think it's an Einstein quote, and it's like, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll live its whole life thinking it's stupid.
Yes.
That's the thing. That's exactly it. Like, that resonates with me to my core. Yeah.
I love that quote so much as well. I love it. I love it because it's really cool to see, like, we can't judge people because we all have different strengths and different weaknesses, and we can serve different ways. And it's a beautiful quote.
Yeah. And it's so true. It's so true. The environment, it is so important. I had this weird epiphany. I'm a really deep thinker, so it's kind of funny doing this interview. And thank you so much for the opportunity again.
You're welcome.
But because I'm such a deep thinker, I don't know what this looks like on the outside when I say things. So, but I had this thought, and it was just so foundational for me. I had this thought that I kind of came to, like, I want to say, like, sieve down what life is. And here's what life is.
Yeah.
Life it consists of four things. And it is, we're all born with our health. We're all born with time. And all of these are limited. So health can be limited. Time can be limited. We're born with community and our environment. And those four things are what we are born with and what we need to live. If one of those things becomes a deficit, then there is suffering. So if our health is a deficit, it's suffering. If there's time at a deficit, obviously, our community, and there's this epidemic of loneliness that's happening in the world, just with disconnect, and certainly the pandemic.
I think that's a beautiful realization, and I'm curious what led you to that. I'm sure it's lots of different things, but what led you to that?
Yeah, you know what, I think it's my neurodiversity. I don't know. I'm really just a different thinker, as witnessed in my book. Probably when you looked through it, it's quite different. It's a unique story. So I'm a unique thinker. I can't even, I'm constantly on the lookout to improve myself, to find truths. I believe in vulnerability. I believe in speaking truths. And so I think my brain is just, even when I'm sleeping, I wake up with these thoughts because I think it's just constantly on and trying to whittle things down to basic truths.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that can be consumed. I mean, it's beautiful. It's a gift that you have, honestly. Like I think that somebody who is able to take big, huge concepts and bring them down into these little bite-sized pieces, it's so beautiful. And when you were talking, you talked about your book a little bit. So I'd love to start digging into that a little bit. You can give us a little bit about what your book is and what the process was for you in the way that you think in a different way.
Okay. Yeah. So I began my writing journey. It was right after my second son was born, and when we talk about hard times for like parenting, I know I had a little bit of postpartum. So what happened was and I will get to the book. I'm long-winded with
Oh,
my
of
story
course.
here.
No,
Okay.
take your time. Yeah.
Um, so my sister, I needed to get out of the house, and she said, I remember her saying, and she's a great inspiration to me, my sister Tracy. So shout out to her. Thank you.
Mhm.
She said, you need to, if you want to get out of the house, she said, I've always wanted to write a children's book. So let's go and just take a class. So through the Alexander Writer Center here in Calgary, we just took like a beginner's writing course. And I hadn't, because of my feelings from growing up and thinking that I wasn't very smart and just feeling the feelings that I had back in school, I didn't think I could write. And I was just going to support her. And I came out of that writer's class with a short story that we had to read our stuff out loud. And the positive feeling that I got from people saying that I could write and that it was interesting, it just ignited something. It ignited something in me that's deep.
Mhm.
And so from then I ended up continuing with the classes and met a group of people, and we're still together today, the Corner Lot Authors. They've been an amazing support in my writing and creative journey. So at first I was writing actually romance, and that didn't fit me too well. But the journey that we're all on is a journey of knowing ourselves better.
Mhm.
And something just clicked when I changed it over to writing for children. And so I started writing for children, and I actually have a middle grade book that I'm going to be publishing in the summer that I'm working on. I'm just editing it right now, and I think that began first. And then my sister Tracy again. I remember distinctly. This was in 2019, 2018. We were driving back from a mall, and we've always had, I don't mean I don't mean this to sound childish, but we've always had stuffies in our lives.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know if you know the brand Jellycat. They're beautiful,
Mhm.
like stuffed animals.
Yeah.
And she and I always, she treated me, she bought me like a little unicorn. I've kind of got him up in my cupboard.
Aw.
And but that day she had bought me an octopus. And she and I were driving back, and we were just sort of joking back and forth about this new stuffy that we had bought, the Jellycat octopus. And she said, Leesa, you should write a story about a unicorn and an octopus. And I was like, oh my gosh, I totally should. Like, that would be hilarious. And the next morning, I sat up in bed at like 6 o'clock in the morning. My husband Dave, he was getting ready for work, and he's like, what are you doing? I wrote the story in about a half an hour.
Wow.
And it just, again, I felt that igniting of something special. And that's when it began back there. So I started with just like a template of a book and didn't know what I was doing. Everything that I've kind of done in my life, I've done in my own way.
Mhm.
Um, almost with not a rebellious disregard for the rules, but I have a hard time kind of following paths that have already been carved out.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and you find it's like incredible things that you find along the way when you try to do something in your own way. We're
Mhm.
all sort of, I think it's built into us. So anyway, yeah. So from there, uh, I I started drawing, and this was about the time that I also started creating portraits for people. So it wasn't just an igniting of that story, I was also like recognizing that I could draw. Wow,
Hmm.
which is interesting because I have memories back of drawing like in the house that I grew up in, but just never feeling like it was anything like as much as I loved it, you couldn't make money at it. So it was, it was
Right.
that sort of like discarded idea.
Hmm.
Yeah. And anyway, so that began my exploration. This led to this book. So um, this book actually is about everything that we've been talking about in a strange way. It's short. It's the panels are here behind me, so you can see that.
Yeah. Yeah, if
Yeah.
you're watching this on YouTube, you can check out the images. And if you're listening to this, don't forget to look at the YouTube video because the art is phenomenal.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
you're
Thank you.
welcome.
So the basis of the book is that an octopus has a teddy bear, One Lucky Teddybear, and that's actually my website too, oneluckyteddybear.com. He's got a teddy bear, and something happens, and he ends up getting pulled up to the clouds. And there he meets a cloudicorn, and from there they have to figure out how to get back down. And the premise of the story is, and even the art for the book, is contrast.
Hmm.
So if you start thinking about like the contrast of this octopus being at the bottom of the ocean and then going all the way up to the cloud, right? We've got like quite low and quite high. And I have the contrast of like it starts out in the morning and it ends in the evening. So you've got the morning sun in the beginning, in the evening, the moon comes out. And then even the materials that I used, and that wasn't something that I had pre-planned. This journey was a long journey. It's
Hmm.
taken me a number of years to slowly work on it and to really think about it. And so yeah, it starts out with pastels and graphite, which is like I've used dry medium,
Hmm.
and ended up with watercolor. And so it's even the contrast in the materials that I've used. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I just wanted to acknowledge that I think your art is absolutely beautiful. I saw it on your website. I just think it's spectacular. And I love it in the book as well. Like I think the octopus is like the cutest little thing I've ever seen. And I love the way that you were able to tie your sister's relationship and connection with the teddy bear into this beautiful story about, overcoming hurdles and figuring out things and with clarity and joy, and enjoying the journey along the way too, and seeing new characters that they meet along the way as like new things that come up in your life where you can just take it all in. And I do believe it's just such a beautiful, unique story. And my one thing I wanted to point out about what I've been catching while you're talking is the way that you had a lot of limiting beliefs. You thought that you weren't smart enough. You thought, oh, I can't be a writer. You thought, oh, I'm not that good at art. You remember things from when you were young, but you had a lot of limiting beliefs. And I can see through a couple things how you broke those down. But to go a little bit deeper in that, we'll come back to the book, but I want to go a little bit deeper in that because I feel so much in my personal journey and in everyone's lives, we do create these limiting beliefs within us. And I see this courageous woman in you who has been able to tackle those limiting beliefs. And I'd love to hear how you did that, because it's something that's not easy, but it's something that's so important that we share so we can learn and grow to how you did it. So I'm curious, how did you tackle those limiting beliefs within?
Well, that is something I'm still working on.
Yeah.
And I thank you for the compliments. I would say that it takes a vulnerability
Mm.
and also a patience. Nothing has to get done like, if you're afraid to do something, you don't have to jump off, and just do it. I mean, I'm sure there's benefits to that.
Mhm.
Maybe it's a personality thing, but it's that little one foot in front of the other. So for me, the limiting belief about I um, I can't draw, over course of the last let's see, like I would make chalk drawings with the boys when they were younger. We would go outside on the sidewalk and I'd draw chalk. And I remember the neighbors saying like, because I draw cartoony things, or I draw like a whole world for them to ride their bikes around.
That's
Super
so
fun for
fun.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, really
Yeah.
fun for me too. And just, to spend that time together. But I remember the neighbors saying, or, somebody saying like, oh, wow, like you really got a talent for that. And I think it's in those little moments when we acknowledge each other
Mm,
that it started building like a little, like, something in me. So it was like a small mention here, and then a small mention there, and then, okay, well, maybe if I um, listen to the little calling voice inside of me that says that there's a little bit more to who I am. I
mhm.
remember going on a trip with my husband and suddenly just having this feeling like, because parenting just takes so much. It's like, okay, who am I other than mom for
Yeah.
my boys? Who am I other than a wife or partner for my husband? Um, and so something about this trip allowed me to think about, investigating like a hobby or something for myself. What am I going to do with my time as the kids get older and more independent, which is what you want, right? Like,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
and so I remember like going to this art store and saying, I'm just going to pick up a couple of pastels and like a book, and did that. And when I talk about small steps, I think I bought that. I kind of, tried to do something and then looked at it and decided it wasn't good enough. It wasn't
Mm,
what the picture in my head didn't match the picture that I was trying to draw. So I think I put that down, and I think it sat there for a year.
yeah.
So and that's okay. It was still something that I wanted in my possession. And so I think it's an accumulation of small steps, because then that happened again where I was like, I drew something and I got another small compliment. So then I thought, oh, maybe I can give this more of a wholehearted try.
Hmm.
And just a short story here.
Hmm.
I have another memory of, so my father passed away in 2016. 2016 was a huge year for me for change.
Hmm.
In 2016, at the start of it, my husband lost the job that he'd had, that was our foundation and our stability.
Yeah.
Um, my dad passed away, which was huge to my heart. Even though we weren't close, it was sort of this breaking of, I think, an ever and a hope of sort of us connecting in a deeper level.
Right.
But that's a whole different story.
Mhm.
And when he passed away, and I flew out to the funeral because he lived on the West Coast, I had brought, I had a picture on my phone of my dog, and I was trying to, um, I think part of my neurodiversity is that I kind of got an octopus brain. So sometimes I talk about like trying to keep some of the tentacles busy. So like I've always got a song rotating in my head,
Mhm.
and I brought this to kind of keep my head busy during this flight that was going to be, I don't like flying, and then to go to my dad's funeral. So I brought this along, and I think I was quite a far way into what was maybe my second or third drawing, and I hadn't really shown anybody any of my other drawings. And anyway, so I was drawing all the way back on the flight, and at the end of the flight, the gentleman next to me stood up and he said, "You are an incredible artist." And he was kind of flustered about it. I think he was saving it for the end. And he left, and just something in me just broke open. So,
Mm,
when you see something, I know for bad stuff, see something, say something. But
yes.
when you see something in somebody, say something.
Yeah.
You can be that person that is the nutrients, the water, the sunlight that cracks that seed open and allows them to grow and develop, because that cracked me open. It did, with that stranger
Yeah.
being vulnerable and making that comment.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so
There's
it's,
there's
yeah, I can't
definitely
love
something
that.
about strangers giving you feedback, because for me in my journey, lots of people could say lots of different things about me, but I was like, well, are they just saying this? Like, you don't know where the intention's coming from, all this, right? But when a stranger, there's something about a stranger who doesn't really know you that well, who is new to your life or doesn't even know you, sitting beside you on a plane, in your example, when they say something, it really makes you think. Like, when you can really receive that feedback full-heartedly and actually listen. Because for me, it was always like, yeah, but whatever, like kind of push it away. But when you really receive it and you listen to the words that they're speaking to you and take it, you're right. It does water that seed that's in you, and it gives them the sunlight. Like you said, I think that's the most beautiful way to word it. I love that, because I think it's so impactful. And a lot of times in our own heads, we're like, oh my gosh, that person looks so cute. I love their outfit. And you just keep it to yourself. But when you actually say that to somebody, it could change their whole day. That's actually like a way of being a positive light. And it's actually like an act of kindness. You know, acts of kindness can be so small, just the way that we communicate with each other. But I love what you're saying in that, you know, when you see something in someone, say it. If you genuinely feel it, say it. And it's a beautiful story that you shared with us about the stranger on the plane. I think that's so awesome. So it lit something in you, and I'll let you continue.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It did. It lit something in me, and it gave me the confidence to move forward. So I think, to answer your question about how I overcame that self-limiting belief, what happened after that was, so with the changes that were happening that year, what else happened that year was the dog that we had since before the kids passed away. So that was like, it was like a lot of grief, I think, layered on top of like, oh, I really need to find a way to express myself as well. So that I think that's kind of, the drawing was one of those like octopus tentacles, keep that busy. But we ended up having to move as well as a consequence of, okay, the lifestyle we sustained, we need to make a change here so that we can continue to sustain ourselves in a good way. So when we moved, we ended up having somebody come in, and they were working on the kitchen a little bit for us. And as they were working, I was drawing, and we struck up a conversation, and I ended up, he was telling me about his dog and how much he loved his dog. And it ended up that I said, well, I'll draw your dog for you. And that was one of my first portraits for commission. And I was amazed at myself, because when I held myself accountable to another person, so that, I think that was step 2.
Right.
When I made an offer that, for me, it was vulnerable, so I wasn't going to ask for a commission. I wanted to do it for him out of the goodness of my heart. And I believe in karma too. So that was also like, no, let me do this for you. You loved your dog so much. Let me draw it for you. And then having that accountability to do something the best that I could for him.
Right.
Pulled something out of me and made me grow more out of that seed. And then to have his reaction, which was overwhelmed, gave me that confidence to then do it again. I think there was another worker that came in the house, and I'm like, do you have a picture that I could draw for you?
Yeah, just finding opportunities wherever you could.
Creating opportunities and doing it within, I guess, my own comfort and safety. And I think that's part of that patience too, right? Because if somebody then would have come back to me, I think at that time and been a bit more forceful, like, I'd like you to draw this to me, it would have put too much pressure. It was sort of like I needed a few opportunities with me, where within my comfort level, to build that confidence, to then have open up the business and have people contact me to draw, and also back to the parenting thing, like that parenting is a bubble that, I remember when my son was born, my first son was the first time that I remember distinctly having this moment in my day, because I all of a sudden was disconnected from my work. Dave would go off to work. I was in my home. I didn't have a lot of family around. And I realized I could go through a whole day without talking to anybody. I could even go to the grocery store and go through the grocery line and not have a conversation. And so being a stay-at-home parent, it can be so isolating, and especially if you're an introvert. And so the art that I started doing, breaking through that barrier for my self-limiting beliefs, involved me actually connecting again with the outside world. And I found that, intimidating.
Yeah.
But it also really, it's something that I'm still working on actually, is just sort of breaking out of my bubble of being in the home and being in my own comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, extreme amounts of growth happen when you push yourself outside of your comfort zone. I fully believe that. And I absolutely love the message of being vulnerable. I think it's forgotten a lot, and sometimes it's even seen as a weakness. You don't want to be too vulnerable or whatever it is. There's lots of messaging around it, but I love your message in vulnerability has allowed you to express yourself in different ways, and it's just a great way to frame it. And I believe too that being vulnerable is an invitation for others to also be vulnerable and open up. And if if you can't expect other people to do what you're not willing to do first, kind of thing. And it's so beautiful through this whole experience, through your whole journey, that you have a lot of grace for yourself, I hear, which is huge. It's huge to breaking down those limiting beliefs, because nothing is linear. Nothing is ever linear. We can see in everyone's life, there's ups and downs and things that we all have to tackle and go through. But when you have that grace for yourself and you allow yourself to feel and be vulnerable, I mean, there's beautiful things that come from it, just like your art and different things like that. So I just want to thank you for sharing that in such a beautiful way with everyone.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you for this forum of being able to talk so openly,
Yeah.
and I absolutely agree with everything you said, that 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I want to jump back into your book a little bit. So where can people find it? How can they get their hands on it? I have it right here. I'll show it. The cover is just absolutely beautiful. So how can people get a hold of your book? And if there's anything else that you want to share about it, I'd love to, dive in a little bit more if there's anything we missed.
Yeah. Okay. So where to find it is on oneluckyteddybear.com. That's me. Or you can do a search on Amazon, and I'm global. Whether you're in Australia or in England, anywhere, you can search for it. One Lucky Teddybear Falling, or my name, Leesa JoAnn Iverson. And what I'd like to share is that I'm working on the next one. So I'm working on One Lucky Teddybear Sideways. So this time it's a monkey. A monkey's got a hold of the bear, and they're going to have an adventure as well. And so it's sort of following the same template that I've already started here, with having like the graphic design elements of almost like a cartoony comic strip with the borders. And that's another contrast in the book, is that I play with the borders and then I take the borders away, and then I, put them back again. So again, like I'm just following my own path and creating something new and original, I hope. I haven't seen anything like what I'm doing out there so far. One thing that I'd like to say about the book is that when I originally had the concept, I was so determined to create a book that didn't need words. And so all of the panels originally were created so that the expressions on the characters' faces, so that the mood, the colors, it could be interpreted in more than one way. I'm absolutely fine with that. We all see things so differently. And I think that that's really important for children, for development, to be able to see things more than one way and have conversations about, well, what is this story, to you? And so the words, they came afterwards, and though I'm happy with the rhythm of them and I'm happy with the simplicity of them, if you have like a nonverbal reader, or if you've got, a child that, is not as maybe expressive, or is just kind of struggling with reading, this story works for that as well. That was my intent in the beginning. So yeah, the words came after the story. It was actually all drawn up, and I'm proud of it.
I love that, because I was definitely a visual reader when I was younger. I was like, the more pictures, the better. So I think that's really important that you're able to tell that story through lots of imaging and expressions, through everything. Like I enjoyed reading it, because I was like, I'm going to read the words first, and then I'm going to take in all the elements of the photos and the drawings and the images that are in it. Like there's just so much beauty within one book, in my opinion. And I absolutely love it. And the one thing you spoke about as well was really carving out your own path. And I feel like you really own that, which is so refreshing to see. And I love that you're on a mission to be different and unique, and you're just embracing that. And I think we need a little bit more of that, because everybody does have their own special, unique voice. And you coming on and sharing your unique and your own voice has been very inspiring. So I thank you again. I'm in awe, because I think it's so courageous for you to push yourself outside your comfort zone and speak about all these different things. So yeah, it's awesome.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. And everything that you just said, that resonates so deeply with me. And that's actually what the book is about too, because, there's talents that an octopus has, and there's talents that the other creature has, the cloudicorn. And so it's in combining those talents. It's the fact that they're different, the fact that they have their own strengths that make, success possible. And that's in all of us. So if we can quiet ourselves enough, or if we can pay attention to ourselves enough, if we can break through that seed that we are and be vulnerable, for growth, then we can achieve.
Yeah.
We can. And we need to embrace those differences. I love your messaging. That's what this is all about.
Yeah, awesome. All right. So I have 4 final questions that I do at every interview. But before I get to that, is there anything else you want to share? A final message aside from the last 4 questions?
Oh my gosh. Do I want to share anything? Yeah, I think my brain just log jammed. So I'm going to say no. There's probably 12 things, but it just all got stuck. So no, let's just keep going.
No problem. All right. So the first question is, what is some of the best advice you've received?
That life, I've received, like, I search for it. I search for, like the quotes and things, but the one that I keep coming back to is that life's a roller coaster. It really is. And it's like a roller coaster. So the important part about it is that when you're up, appreciate that you're up. Like, enjoy the view, and know that you're going to have it's a down is coming. It's inevitable. It's the balance of that, right? Of the discomfort and sort of suffering, unless you like the downs, but and then when you're down, when you're feeling really low, just remember that there's going to be another rise. Like, don't lose hope. You are going to go up again. It's going to be, there are things in this life that we can always find to be grateful for. And that, when things happen, as many bad things happen, good things can happen. So I have this thought in my head that, whenever I encounter something that makes me unhappy, or that is scary, or that upsets me, I immediately think, yeah, but there's something good in the world. If you think that, somebody passed away, well, somebody was born today too. So it's finding that balance, the highs and the lows. Just appreciate them, appreciate where you are, and just know that it's not always going to be that way.
Yeah, and then focus on what you want to attract too, right? And that, like you were talking about, finding the positive within the bad as well. It's beautiful messaging. All right, the next question is, what is some of the worst advice you've received?
I once had somebody tell me that for a job, they basically told me to stalk the like, if I wanted a specific job, like, basically, like, go stand outside of the business and every day, so that they know that you are, right there, and that you're reliable, and that you're interested, and you're motivated. And I mean, it's not terrible advice, but it's bad advice for me, because that is not who I am.
Right.
So yeah, that wasn't what that advice told me was that person didn't know me very well.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't align with who you are. And that's your messaging, is to be who you are. So it went against that. I love that. That's great. Yeah. All right, next question. This is one of my favorite questions. So what is a piece of advice you would tell your younger self, or somebody in the younger generation? Take as long as you need to think about it. You got time.
Yeah. I think what I want to say actually resonates back to the discussion that we've been having, which is it's going to be, well, it comes to mind like all will be well. I like all the L's in those words. And it's true. I think what we are born with, when I talk about those four things like health, time, community, and environment, when I talk about like inherent sort of gifts or abilities that we have, I think that's in the seed that we are when we come here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's who we are born, and what we have when we're born, and it's with us all the time. So I think I would just, it's sort of like just saying it's going to be okay. The journey that you're on is the things that happen to you and the way that you react to it, but you're capable already. It's already in you.
Yeah, I love that. You already have everything you need to achieve, right? Yeah, that's great. Awesome. And the last question, it's a little bit of an easier one, but what are you grateful for? I love to end the interview on a state of gratitude. And so I'm curious, what are you grateful for?
I'm grateful for you.
Thank you.
Very grateful for you. I'm very grateful for the ability to communicate, to think. I'm grateful for so much. I'm having a log jam again. I'm grateful for that. But let me just also say, I'm so grateful to be alive right now with the people that I have in my life and with all the possibility that there is. I think that it's quite easy to kind of look upon things and sort of feel like a sense of either loss or hopelessness, sometimes depending on the news. But I'm just so grateful there's so much positive forward motion, and that's the big picture stuff. But for me, I'm so grateful for my husband. I'm so grateful for my kids. I'm so grateful for my siblings, my friends, my community, my writing community, and when I talk about like trying to sort of break my bubble, it's to connect even more with people outside, and it's not within my comfort zone to necessarily do that, but once I have, man, those bonds are strong. Like it, yes. And that's the thing. That's that feeling that you just know, a person, that you're supported, you're cared about, loved, and that they will receive your love too. So. Yeah.
Fantastic. A great way to end the episode. Thank you so much again for joining me and being vulnerable and sharing your story. If you want to get a hold of her book, I'm going to put the link below. You can find them in the episode notes. So it's going to be really easy for you to get her book and learn a little bit more about her, see her art and everything that she has to offer. But again, thank you so much for showing up today and pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone and doing this interview with me today.